So good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Since these parshas deal with the 10 plagues, all the listeners can also refer to our website. The website of Yeshivat is Dvar, D-V-A-R, .org.il, and you can turn to the video and the talk, and also a written out essay with this chart on the subject of the 10 plagues. So, here I'll give you also copies of the chart. The colored ones I need back, but you can keep some photocopies in black and white. And now let me explain that when we look at the Chumash, we sometimes just for the multitude of trees, we don't see the forest. So, in other words, you read through passages of the Chumash and don't realize there's a hidden pattern. Just like also in the world around us, of nature, we often look at the world around us and don't see the pattern. Once you see a pattern, you see there's a purpose. So Hashem reveals himself through his works and also through his words. Just as he reveals himself through his words, Marabu Masecha Hashem, and the progress of science throughout the ages is a constant progression in understanding the pattern which lies in nature. All the great thinkers amongst the scientists recognize this more and more. Perhaps I can explain in this way the pasuk we say daily, Dor l'dor Shabach ma'asecha u'v'rosecha yagidu. Shabach is not just a praise. It's also related today, the word is Shevach. This is Mas Shevach. That's a property tax. As it increases in value, you've got to pay more. The Shevach has got to do with, also in the expressions of Mishnah, the Gemara, it's got to do with profit increase.
We put them away. Put them here for people.
So, to understand this on a deeper level, I'll give the following explanation. That creation reveals different phenomena which are united by one God who harmonizes them all. This is why the sages say, beginning of chapter 5 of Pirkei Avot, why was the world created in 10 sayings? It could have been created in one saying, but this is to give greater reward to the saints who uphold the world which is created in 10 sayings. Because if you look through the first parsha of the Chumash, it says Vayomer, it says it 9 times. And the sages say the 10th time is the first word of the Chumash, Bereshit. What's the difference if it's in 1 or it's in 10? So, we know that throughout the Tanakh, throughout the Bible, there is significance attached to numbers all the time. There's a numerical language. And this is part also of the Tzelem Elokim, of the body of a human being. The reason why human beings were created with 10 fingers and 10 toes is the concept of unification of diverse elements. So the concept of harmony in nature, which is, it's Einstein, even more modern, more recent, contemporary thinkers in the scientific world, they say the more that we analyze all the phenomena of nature, the more we see there's a harmony between them, which means there's a purposeful designer. So this is creation. And we also know a similar concept is the Aseret HaDvarim. This is not only mentioned in the words of the oral tradition, this is explicit in the Chumash. It's emphasized there are 10 sayings, the Aseret HaDibrot. If you analyze them in the concept of how many commandments there are and prohibitions, there are more than 10. But it's divided in 10 sayings, the same concept. The Torah contains many diverse mitzvot, all of which are harmonized with the unity of Hashem, unity of God. And we know that there are already in the early Midrashim, there's also clear indications of Chumash that you can categorize all the mitzvot of the Torah under the heading of the Aseret HaDibrot. One of the earliest books of commandments, Sefer Mitzvot, written by Rav Saadia Gaon, so his Sefer HaMitzvot is entirely based upon 10 categories of the Aseret HaDibrot. So, contemporary Egyptian descriptions, which have been contemporary of the time of Mitzrayim, such as the Iqua papyrus, which is also shown on our website. They found a papyrus which describes how the 10 plagues hit the Egyptians. It demonstrates how Egypt collapsed because of the 10 plagues. And the way they presented the Chumash demonstrates God's power in history. Each plague being a finger of God. Vidatem ki ani Hashem is mentioned 10 times in the description of the 10 plagues. It's the same concept. To recognize Hashem as master of nature and of history is the basis of accepting him as master of our lives by observing the Aseret HaDibrot. So we can say that the 10 plagues are the road between the existence of Hashem as the creator of nature, to teach us the existence of Hashem as the master of history. History is his story, in order to bring the people of Israel, through the people of Israel, the whole world, to recognize in human life, to reach also harmony by following the wisdom of Hashem. So, in order to see it more clearly, we know when we recite the 10 plagues at the Seder night, we take a little bit of the wine and drop it. The wine which expresses the full cup of joy of the miracles that occurred, are accompanied also by sadness that human beings had to be killed and tortured through the 10 plagues, which was their punishment for torturing the Jewish people, not willing to recognize the God of history. The God of history is shown through the way in which Hashem looks after his people. So, then after reciting the 10 plagues of the Seder night, we quote a statement of Rabbi Yehuda, noten beim Simanim. If you really want to see the pattern in the 10 plagues, then you can do it by the Tzach, Adash, Ba'achab, which are the initial letters of Dam Tzvadei Akinim, Tzach, and so on. He divided them into 3. So it's like this. If you look carefully in the Chumash, why did he divide them into 3? 3, 3, 3, and then the final Makat Bechorot, which ended the supremacy of the Egyptian Empire. So if you look carefully, in the first plague of each set of 3, Moshe was told, go to Pharaoh in the morning at the Nile. Why was he at the Nile? Because the Nile was his God, and he identified himself with the Nile. He said, I, Pharaoh, am God. That's why he went to the Nile, in the combined aspect of idolatry. And there Moshe was asked to warn him, Moshe and Aaron, that I'm going to send a plague. That's the first one of each 3. And you'll see it on the chart also. The chart is divided. That's what they are the first 3. And the first one is with a full warning given to Pharaoh when he's at the Nile. And the second plague of each set, Moshe was told to go to Pharaoh, not in the morning by the Nile, but in his palace, so the whole people would know about it. In other words, the warning was publicized by going to the palace. The third plague of each series has no warning at all. It was a punishment for not heeding the first 2 warnings. So if you look at your chart, could you everyone have a chart in front of them? I think there are enough copies to go around. Yeah. I just leave back all the coloured ones, but you can keep a black and white one. So if you look at some are only Hebrew, but maybe also you have those in English. You see Hatra'ah, warning, that the first in each set, there's a full warning from the Nile. Good. The second one, he went to the palace. The third one is no warning. It's accordance with the principle which is found in many aspects of Jewish law, that frequently both divine punishment as well as it goes into also in certain human situations, given a warning twice, you don't listen, and the third time you'll be punished without warning. Now the first set of 3 is introduced by the words we brought here, that it says, Leman Teda ki ani Hashem. The first 3 teaches us the first principle of faith. You've got to know that I am Hashem, that I am the master of history, master of the world. Really, it's basically the existence of Hashem. And that's why even by the 3rd plague, even the great wise men and magicians of Egypt said, we recognize that it's an Etzba Elokim, this is the finger of God. Finger of God is protecting the people of Israel and punishing those who deny Him. The second set, it says, Ki ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. Not just that I am a God, but I am in the middle of the earth. The words, this is to teach the true concept of biblical monotheism is not deism. Deism is the concept, or that there is a God who, however, is not concerned at all with human beings, because in this vast universe, man is just a small speck, almost invisible from the heights of heaven. And this leads many, it's also even today, there are many people, oh, if there's a God, because we see in nature that God runs creation, but that in itself makes all of us think that human beings are entirely insignificant. Why should God care about what goes on amongst human beings? He's so far beyond it. This concept of God is reflected in lots of Greek and later philosophy until today, philosophical science until today. But the main emphasis of what we read in the Chumash is that God is very much concerned with the human being. And it's very interesting that in modern times there's been a swing of opinion amongst most thinkers in the world of science. People used to think, well, all right, God exists, but why should he care about what goes on in the human mind, what goes on in human history? In fact, for this they say a pasuk, Rom al kol goyim Hashem. For the nation of the world, Hashem is up in heaven. He's not concerned what goes on here below. And there's a mnemonic also, you wonder the difference between counting the year, the secular year and the Jewish year. The difference is, and not in hundreds, apart from differences in thousands, the other difference is Ram is 240 years difference between the Jewish counting the calendar year and the one we call the common era. Ram al kol goyim, Shem al Shamayim Kavodo. It's true that his great honor is up in the heavens. But how does the pasuk continue, which we sang this morning? We said it this morning. Hamashpil lerot b'shamayim. He lowers himself down to see from the heavens what's going on here on earth. And not only in the general world has this become acceptable by most deeper thinkers. I mean, there's Nicholas Badiayev, who's previously agnostic, but he's from the meaning of history. He came to believe in God who controls history, who has providence. There's a famous book, The Clue to History, by a famous Scottish philosopher, John McMurray. The clue to history is taken from the biblical account, which is not an account of what has been only, but what continues to be until today, the history of mankind. So this is demonstrates that God is concerned. And where was it founded? With the 10 plagues. And that's Ki Ani Hashem B'kerev Haaretz. That is the difference in philosophical terms between deism and theism. Deism is the concept that God is Deus, beyond nature. And theism is generally accepted as the term for monotheism, particularly that God is concerned what goes on with human beings, it's providence, the second important principle. And the third set, they say, the third set is introduced, the purpose is, it says, Leman, it's that it says Ki Ani Hashem B'chol haaretz, that I am God in all the earth. In all the earth, that means that it goes much further, that every aspect of human behavior could not exist without the constant life energy that Hashem gives, Otam Chayet Kulam. And it says there, it teaches us the power of Hashem. He's omnipotent, he's all-powerful. Hashem Echad. And the 10th one is the special concept that the people of Israel are his firstborn. What do you mean they're his firstborn? In the Egypt also was the concept of the Chorim, of the mighty ones. Who are those who represent power in the world? It's the materialists, the materially strongest ones, which is reference generally to the firstborn, and in a wider sense, all those who are most powerful. But it's Am Yisrael is considered the firstborn because we're the first ones who make Hashem the father of the family of mankind. In other words, all human beings are part of his family. As referred to already in the blessing given to Avraham Avinu, through you will be blessed all the families of the earth, all my children. But in order that all mankind will recognize Hashem, Hashem chose the people, or the people chose Hashem, to become Mamlechet Kohanim. That means to become a kingdom that demonstrates service to Hashem. That is the true significance of the Bechor. And that's the 10th one. So, the foundations of faith, Shema Yisrael, expressed by Israel, is to strengthen these three principles: that Hashem exists, that Hashem is concerned with what goes on earth, and number 3, that Hashem is omnipotent, that he is powerful to exclude any other power. And that's the foundations of faith expressed by Israel, the first they demonstrate by teaching of destiny, the fatherhood of God, which also brings about the brotherhood of mankind. But in order to teach mankind how to live with this faith, so the people of Israel are the firstborn son of the true father of mankind. So the 10 plagues show that those who deny this God do so at their own peril. So we see the pattern of God's power in history is the basis for Israel's acceptance of God's life pattern of Israel and mankind. So we have it like this. That we choose the words which are used. The sages say the word which is Asara Ma'amarot, in 10 sayings. And the code for mankind is Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 declarations. Now, what is the difference in Omar and Dibur in Hebrew? And if you can tell me? These are commonly used words in the Tanakh and also in daily speech, but they have a different meaning. What's the difference between the two? In fact, there's a frequent phrase in the Chumash, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe Lemo. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying. What do you mean? If he spoke, obviously he was saying. And if he was saying, it's obviously he spoke. Because in English, what's the difference in speaking and saying? Any difference? I'll tell you how you can find out the difference. Or can any of you tell me what's the difference in English between speaking and saying? Yeah?
Isn't he a tzivui? And saying is just communication?
Okay. So in other words, you're saying that Oma means general communication, includes everything, and Dibur always means a commandment. Well, there are cases where it means a commandment, but if you look through the Tanakh, Dibur is frequently used where it's not a commandment. I'll tell you how you can best see the difference. There are some speakers, and in fact even people who are speaking regularly, give public talks regularly, they often fall into this error. Used to say in the sermons that were given in many synagogues in England, where I grew up, were often the ability to speak a lot without saying anything. Yeah. Yeah. And that happens, can happen to any of us. Yeah. A person often speaks a lot, he's short of words, he speaks a lot, he doesn't say anything. You come out from it and you say, what did he actually say? You can't repeat it. You can repeat all the words. A lot of verbiage without really giving a proper message. Certainly there are plenty of such talks that go on in parliaments and other public debates. So it's like this, that the sages say, a bit on your lines, they say like this: Dvar is a reference to concrete speech, and Amira is explanation. Explanation that people understand it. So therefore in the Chumash, the Haidaber is what we would call Torah Shebichtav, and Leimor is Torah Shebal Peh. For example, the parsha we say every day of Tzitzit starts with that phrase, Vaidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimor. So Hashem spoke to Moshe saying. The word saying means that what Hashem said to Moshe and told him to write down, he wrote down in the Sefer Torah, the Parsha of Tzitzit. But Leimor is the oral tradition. To understand concretely what Tzitzit are, you won't be able to get it from the text alone. The text is headings. It just gives you certain, sometimes practical aspects and sometimes conceptual aspects of the Tzitzit, or what their purpose is. That's afraid that's in the Parsha of Tzitzit. There are many words, and each word has significance. And the Torah Shebal Peh explains to you how it means when you have to have a four-cornered garment, what's called four corners, what type of tzitzit, what type of material can be made of. There are many different laws concerning tzitzit that goes into the Leimor, the Torah Shebal Peh, and the Dvar, Torah Shebichtav. So therefore, when it says in the introduction, give the other long, the introduction to the Aseret HaDibrot, it starts with also Vaidaber Hashem Yukim Et Hadvrim Ha'ele Leimor. That's how it's introduced. The Aseret HaDibrot are they've been engraved in stone. These are heading words and principles. But for example, they hint, following what I said at the beginning of study, all the 630 mitzvot are hinted at under the headings of the Aseret HaDibrot. Because that's the Leimor. Leimor is the full explanation, going to many details. If you really want to fulfill them, you have to study Torah thoroughly. So that applies. Similarly also, when Noach was given the Noachide Code, it was also given under certain headings. But to understand it thoroughly, it goes into many different details. So the Torah, both for mankind as well for Am Yisrael, is made up of Bichtav and Baal Peh, Dibur and Leimor. So we can say like this: the creation, when we say Hashem, it's true Hashem spoke, but it mentioned entirely Vayomer, because if you want to understand the nature both of history, but even more so of the moral pattern for mankind, then you can find the divine aspect of nature that surrounds us through your investigation. In other words, Hashem, when He created the world, there was no one to speak to, because part of the creation was man himself. Couldn't yet speak to him directly, give him a dibur. But He gave him a deep understanding of the harmony of nature, which is shown through the 7 days. There's a book by Will Lee, The 7 Days of Creation. Also, more recently, there's a scientist from Bar-Ilan University who's written quite a few books on this subject to demonstrate how the 7 days of creation, how they're described, actually refer to the different gradations that exist in the natural world, which gives us an easy understanding to see Hashem's design. So therefore Hashem's design can be seen through the Asara Mamarot, which show there's a sign, there's a design. If there's a design, there must be a designer. This is we know in America today there are many debates. Are you allowed to teach the designer interpretation of the sciences? So some places allow it, some don't allow it. Here in Israel, unfortunately, of course in the religious schools, for sure, they always teach the designer interpretation of the Tanakh. But the head of the scientific department of the Ministry of Education, in fact, he put into the curriculum that they want to put forward evolutionary concepts, fine, but they should also teach the children the design interpretation, give them the chance also. So he was dismissed from his job. Hershkovitz knew. I was the religious sections, the Mamlachti Dati, of course, they teach the designer concept constantly, according to different interpretations of many of Jewish thinkers. But still, the basis is that the world is designed by a creator, which is far more logical. And in fact, if you analyze scientific concepts deeply, then I know that there are many who, in their essays in schools and colleges, they'll go and adopt for the designer view, and they'll deny the truth of evolution. They won't give them any marks, and they won't allow people to lecture. But this is a dogma. It's entirely dogmatic. There's so many proofs certainly against the agnostic interpretation of evolution that come by itself. And the more the science develops, the more we see the purposefulness of every aspect of nature. These are the 10 sayings, Mamarot. But we have to translate them into Aseret HaDibrot, like you explained. Dibrot emphasizes that these are commandments, these are guidelines how human beings should live. So we have the Asara Mamarot to bring us to the Aseret HaDibrot, and how do we and the nation of the world come to it? Through the Eser Makot. It's the Eser Makot that lead to the acceptance of the Aseret HaDibrot. And the truth is, this is not shown in this chart, but this chart works entirely according to the text. If you look carefully, you'll find that I put at the top also all the sources from the different commentaries. Some of you ready to follow this? The top, I put the Malbim, and then the Seforno, Abarbanel, the Ramban, and the Alshir, and Rabbi Hirsch. So you'll find that if you take them together, you've got a complete pattern of the Tzach Hadash Ba'achab. So when you read through the Parsha of the week, if you do it together with this chart, you'll see that it's worked in a pattern. That Hashem Yisbarach wanted to bring Pharaoh to the recognition. At that time, that was the largest empire in the Middle East, to show that Hashem is the master of human history, and the people of Israel have a special role to fulfill, to live in accordance with that concept, until ultimately mankind will learn to follow the Aseret HaDibrot, which, they're given in 2 versions, the Aseret HaDibrot. If you study the difference between the version in Yitro, which we're going to read in 2 weeks' time, and you compare it or contrast it with what is mentioned when Moshe Rabbeinu repeated it for Am Yisrael before he went into Eretz Yisrael. So the deepest answer is like this. First time was given in the desert. The second time was given on the threshold of entering Eretz Yisrael. The first time was given in the desert because it was intended for all the nations of the world. If they would have accepted it, then the history would have changed already. If the other nation would have accepted it. If we would have been on a sufficiently high level, maybe nations would have accepted it at that time. But it's needed these thousands of years for the Aseret HaDibra to spread to mankind. Today, the Bible is known to the vast majority of human beings, and especially the Decalogue. The second time it was given when the nations rejected it, so then Hashem put the Aseret HaDibra as the major categories for the whole Torah, for Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. And that's why in the first Aseret HaDibra, it's only Hashem is introduced as demonstrating his power in the world through taking Am Yisrael out of Egypt with the 10 plagues. But otherwise, it doesn't mention, in the first time, it doesn't mention the creation of the world with regard to Shabbat. The second time, he mentions the purpose of Shabbat for the people of Israel particularly is to put into practice service to Hashem by not doing any work on Shabbat. And then it says you've got to remember you were a slave in Egypt. Now, instead of being a slave in Egypt, you've got to demonstrate that now you're a servant to Hashem who recognizes that everything comes from him. Because now we have a stronger national role to fulfill since we have to go and apply rulership of Hashem in the land of Israel. But let's hope in our time that especially I think we'll concentrate upon one aspect which is so important today for the whole world. Anochi Hashem Elokecha is the first one of the Dibrot between man and God. And the first one between man and man is Lo Tirtzach, thou shalt not murder. And today we have a huge movement which is unfortunately causing terrible cruelty and evil in this world, that on the one hand they speak in the name of Allah, of God, on the other hand they desecrate the most important law between man and man, of Lo Tirtzach. They murder innocent people. Now today, for example, they want $200 million from Japan in order to release 2 hostages of Japanese journalists that they took, and if not, they're going to murder them in a cruel way. And they do this in the name of Allah. What's happening here? So we have to demonstrate that we Jews, we have to uphold and ask all the whole Western world to help mankind that has on the whole accepted the prohibition of killing innocent people, that this first principle must be based upon the way in which God has revealed himself to the Jewish people. And what they're doing is they're more cruel than Paro in certain ways. They're following Paro. And they think they've got such a distorted understanding of the God of mankind and the God of Israel, who's a moral God. And unfortunately, many Europeans are siding with them, one way or another. So let us hope throughout Tefillah, as we said this morning we sang in Hallel, Kol Goyim Stevavuni, the nations of the world surround us. And unfortunately, they surround us with not recognizing the true God. So we say, B'Shem Hashem ki amilam. But we'll cut them off in the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem means three things. Name Hashem means trust in Hashem. It means, the name itself speaks about chesed. Hashem represents loving kindness, which is the exact opposite of lo tirtzach, the most extreme opponent. Because man was created b'tzelem Elokim. Each human being, that's the basis of it, is in the image of Hashem. And someone who commits murder, he's not only denying God, he's attempting to destroy the image of God in the world. And yet these people are innocent. And this is the most terrible sin. And that's the second aspect of Hashem, is love and not hate. And the third aspect of Hashem, the whole Torah is the revelation of Hashem through His words and through His wisdom. So with strengthening these, Ki Hamilam, we'll cut them off. And then we say, they surround me in different circles. Otherwise, one refers to the Intifada nearby, the other refers to the other nations of the world that are so filled with hatred against the Jews and against the Jewish God, who believes in preserving life. But above all, it says, Savuni kedvorim, they surround me like bees. I'll cut them off. Why bees worse? Because bees believe, or they have it in their function, that to hate someone else and express your hatred at someone else, you should do it even to kill yourself. Bees do. Bees sting, and then they die. Their sting brings their death. And these extremists, they have suicide bombers, that's a great danger for the whole of mankind, who don't mind killing themselves, like they did at 9/11. They'll kill themselves, they don't care, and they're all great heroes in this terrible, cruel world. They give up their lives to kill themselves, and at the same time they can kill people from the West or kill the Jewish people, or those support them. And it's a very, very serious challenge we face, but we say, B'Shem Hashem ki Hamilam. In the end, Lo Moskiach yet. The people of Israel will not die. Hashem will help us, and Yitz Hashem, through our strengthening in Torah, Tefillah, and Chesed, that Israel or Sechayil, in the end, in this struggle, we will succeed because of the Aseret HaDibrot, based upon Yasara Mamarot, the revelation of Hashem, for the purpose to which He created the human world. Any questions, please? Yes.
When Rosh was said before that Bnei Yisrael is the firstborn. So in the pasuk, I don't remember who, but it says Ephraim is the firstborn. So when is Ephraim the firstborn, and when is the rest of the Klal? How does Rosh interpret both different?
Look, we see from the Torah the concept of Bechor is the one who has to carry on the mission of the father. He's the firstborn. So let's say afterwards there come another 10 children. And then when, let's say, the father dies, then the firstborn's got to take over to carry on the traditions and the heritage to receive from the father. That's the general concept. But in the Torah we see there's a concept of Bechor on the spiritual level. It does not depend on being born first. It depends upon recognizing, as far as nations are concerned, in any case, the firstborn nation is the one that first recognizes who's the true father of mankind. And the people of Israel, since we are Mamlechet Kohanim, we carry on with that. So even Yaakov Avinu carried on with it. You find all the way through the Chumash, the firstborn from a Torah angle means the firstborn recognizes the father of Hashem. And in even the families of Jewish people, so the firstborn is the one who recognizes the father of Hashem on a higher level.
I'm sorry, the what of Hashem?
Let's say the tribes of Israel. The tribes of Israel also, the birthright was passed on to not the firstborn, taken away from the firstborn because he wasn't on the sufficiently high level. So it was given in a certain sense to the tribe of Levi and the Kohanim. Not that when it's on a national level, the change took place when at the golden calf, it was just Mil Hashem Elai. It was the tribe of Levi who decided they're going to be loyal to Hashem entirely. So as a result, Yaakov, they're the ones who took over the concept of the firstborn. But here we're dealing more with the concept of the contrast between the Bechor of Egypt and the Bechor amongst Am Yisrael in relationship to Hashem. Now, you can keep the ones black and white, but keep them back your colors on, please. You don't have colors.